are the name of the game, the thing to be extracted without a shred of shame. Although it was originally a jewelry business started in the mid-1900s, the BGS Mining Guild that would etch its name in history didn't begin until the mid-2000s, coinciding with the mass migration from Incuna. After the devastation of the world's banks and farming industry, along with their tertiary and dependent industries, untold numbers of unemployed or underemployed people roamed the four corners of the planet. The price of labor dropped immensely, and the manual labor jobs once done by a selective few were now performed en masse. While this boost of production allowed the Empire to begin its early plans for expedient trips off-world, it left the mining industry's wages barely livable through oversaturation. As is customary in times of economic strife, hundreds of millions of people sold off their prized jewels, many of which belonged to families for generations, in order to fend off starvation or other woes of poverty. This ultimately wasn't much help either, as the flood of jewelry began to swamp cash-for-gold services and independent buyers in every state. This is where BGS came into the picture. When the Bennard Grey Jewelry Company saw its income dwindle, it sought out the mining guilds, overflowing with hands that supplied the diamonds and gems for their jewelry. Desperate to jump off the sinking ships they were now manning, tycoon after tycoon was happy to sell underpriced stock or even full companies to Bennard Grey. Soon, Bennard Grey Jewelry Company had consolidated a vertical integration scheme, controlling every step of the jewelry-making process from start to finish. It was then that Grey's remaining family, his 6 sons and daughter, stepped up to the plate. Grey placed a child at the head of each region's mining operations, every one of them bringing their own methods and mindset to the table. Despite this nepotistic division of power, Bennard still saw and functionally placed himself as the sole head of the Bennard and Grey's corporation. He pushed for mining to continue despite the cavalcade of workers working without equipment. He forced equipment sellers to undersell when he did supply the mines, and bribed border officers to look the other way when transporting across state lines. More than anything else, however, he price-gauged. Jewelry, heirlooms, rings, whatever it may be, despite the cultures in question, saw dramatic rises in price. After years of success under this model, and years of continued economic strife, BGC offered to place diamonds as a new standard for currency in dozens of the Empire states. Seeking any out from the problems total environmental and economic collapse entailed, it wasn't hard to see why many nations bit the bullet and integrated his self-serving idea. Seeing where this path was heading, Grey's only daughter decided to opt out of the company entirely, in response to which an unknown client hired a hitman to dispose of her. After her death, the now rebranded Bennard Grey & Sons Mining Guild played for pity, scoring deals with the powerhouse states of China and Soviet. Obviously, the Empire had its eyes on BGS, but with its ties to the local currency of over 50 member states, its role as the employer of millions, and the Empire's need for the diamonds and metallic overburdened in the migration efforts, the idea of sparking a dispute with this power keg of a company was absurd. The Empire, instead, sought out a way to lessen its dependence on the company, especially as Arco was fresh in the memory of Imperial leadership. States were urged to regulate BGS or discard the diamond standard of currency, but with rampant corruption and a barely stabilizing economy, it was a non-starter. In fact, a few libertarian movements claimed the Empire was overstepping its bounds to attempt such direct interference with state affairs, an unfortunate addition to the unwieldy discourse surrounding its governance. The states, however, had supporters of the imperial cause in their populace, namely the mistreated workers of BGS in their communities. Strikes, protests, and even riots broke out over the minuscule pay, awful conditions, and plentitude of health concerns. Beyond that, there was a true crime community using interconnected web servers to interact, poised with the discovery of Henrietta Grey's killer. After months of sleuthing pressed forward by the chaotic conversations around BGS and Grey's ever more panicky actions, this true crime community stumbled across evidence that Bennard himself hired the hitman. When this information was given to police and Imperial headquarters, a pair of raids were planned by each agency. However, having previously been bribed and thinking that he was the only contact, the local police chief warned Grey of the exact time of his raid, giving him time to burn any culpable information. The rapidly assembled Imperial raid, on the other hand, caught Grey red-handed in the destruction of evidence. He was tried for the murder soon after and was found, by a slim margin, not guilty, with the jurors stating a lack of evidence swayed them. In turn, he was tried for his destruction of evidence and was found guilty with a sentence of 7 years in prison, along with several accomplices. The Empire then pounced on BGS, rapidly labeling it as a megacorporation, seizing it under the new-at-the-time law that felons cannot head megacorporations, then placing an Imperial puppet as its new president, and ceding the company to her. Grey's sons were ousted, and wages were raised, though the company failed to grow much past this point, and it eventually phased into several smaller companies. The legacy of BGS stands as the reason for the Diamond Standard, and another reason why the Empire has a very tentative relationship with megacorporations and their influence.